Season 1980-81, League Division 4, 23rd, sought re-election, League Cup first round, FA Cup first round. This was Halifax Town's promotion year, or at least that's what George Kirby intended. What actually unfolded was another depressing season during which there was as much action, probably more in fact, off the field as there was on it as the club stumbled from one crisis to another. Kirby signed the players he felt might serve him well, but all came on free transfers. Defender Clive Nattrass, Darlington and Ken Burton Chesterfield, Burton had played in the First Division with Sheffield Wednesday, were joined by utility player Steve Ward from Northampton. Then, at the end of June, Kirby's own job description changed when he set a trend by becoming the first paid chief executive and member of the board, with responsibilities for much else besides running the team. One of his immediate tasks was to persuade Mick Kennedy to remain at the Shea. The midfielder, obviously desiring a higher grade of football, declined a new contract and refused to train with the club. Bristol Rovers and Chelsea showed initial interest, but on the 6th of August, Kennedy moved to Huddersfield Town for a record £50,000. His departure left Kirby with a void he was unable to fill. Seeking a fresh image, Town reverted to the more traditional blue shirts and white shorts, but as was becoming customary, they bowed out of the League Cup at the first hurdle, with relegated Bury winning 1-0 at the Shea for a 3-2 aggregate win. The arrival of Tranmere midfielder Tommy O'Neill, once with Manchester United, helped lift the mood at the Shea, but not for long. Mansfield's 2-0 win on the league's opening day was as bad a start as Kirby or the fans could have wished for. The town boss was becoming increasingly frustrated in his efforts to sign new players, particularly strikers. The previous term he had failed to land the likes of Fred Binney, Exeter, and Simon Garner, Blackburn. Now, just before Town's second league game at Peterborough, Everton's Imre Varade, who had actually been listed in the match programme, suddenly decided against signing after all. Before long, Portsmouth Derek Showers would also turn the club down. No doubt Kirby found the signings of Mickey Bullock's nephew Simon and his own son Simon a little smoother. Early season results continued to be genuinely poor. A 4-2 victory over Bury was spectacular, a single goal win over Scunthorpe less so. But before Town knew where they were bottom of the league. Even the long-awaited return after injury of Kevin Johnson failed to inspire the team, and he would struggle to find the form that made him such an outstanding player before breaking his leg. Behind the scenes, an almighty upheaval was brewing. At the board meeting on the 26th of August, Chairman Andrew Delaney resigned. Director Arthur Mitchell followed suit days later, and was succeeded by John Crowther. Andrew Hodgson joined the board shortly afterwards, but Crowther's term at the helm was to be short-lived. In November, he was in talks with his counterparts at Halifax Rugby League Club, Bill Hughes, with a view to ground sharing up at Frum Hall. However, at a further meeting of the town board on the 17th of November, it was decided to curtail any further discussions on the subject. 3 days later, Crowther resigned, citing his own poor health, though many speculated upon the real reasons. The upshot was that John Goldthorpe found himself appointed Town's third chairman of the season. Meantime, in an attempt to strengthen his team, Kirby missed the defeat at Torquay in order to sign Barnsley striker Tommy Graham for £20,000, and midfielder Jimmy McIlfrate, just released by Bury. These two starred in Town's next game, a 3-1 win over York, but 4 days later the same side crumbled embarrassingly 5-1 against High Flyers Southend at the Shea. There were calls for Kirby's head. A petition was even drawn up for one game, but the Town manager carried on regardless. He considered Town unfortunate not to earn a replay at 3rd Division Hull City in the first round of the FA Cup. True, his side had performed well, but still losing 2-1 at Boothbury Park. But with results in the league of primary concern, the pressure was well and truly on as Town continued to struggle. Worrying too was the fact that the crowds were staying away. For the home game with Bournemouth on the 29th of November, only 987 had bothered to turn up. Watching Halifax Town's sorry plight with interest was Don Robinson, chairman of non-league Scarborough. On the 17th of December, he made an audacious £80,000 offer, the total cost of Halifax Town's shares, to take over the club. His intention seemed to be to move Halifax Town to Seymour Road and use his own club as a reserve side in the Alliance Premier League. New Town chairman John Goldthorpe reacted by saying, "I am treating this thing with disdain and will not lose any sleep over it." Still, with the threat hanging over the club, Town strengthened their own position when millionaire Sam Rourke, owner of the Deer Park at Holywell Green, joined the board on Christmas Eve, along with builders merchant David Sharp. The pair of them actually sat down with Robinson, but the outcome was that Halifax Town would retain its own identity and carry on fighting. On the 19th of January, Sam Rourke took over as chairman. Goldthorpe would eventually leave the board in March, and John Crowther returned as vice chairman, with responsibility for public relations. He would have to work overtime. Back in December, Bobby Flavelle had rejoined the club. He would make just one appearance before being sacked for disciplinary matters. On New Year's Day, centre-half Billy Ayre signed from Hartlepool, with Kevin Johnson going in the opposite direction. Walsall goalkeeper Ian Turner, an FA Cup winner with Southampton in 1976, came on loan, and days after Rourke took over as chairman, Town breezed to a 2-0 win over Stockport as an air of optimism crept around the Shire. It never amounted to much. Despite taking Bournemouth midfielder Brian Chambers till the end of the season and earning successive victories over Crewe and fellow strugglers Hereford in March, consecutive defeats by Northampton at the Shire, Hartlepool and Darlington met that re-election was unavoidable. Town tried to remain upbeat and, after avoiding defeat in their final 3 matches, set about the task of impressing other Football League chairmen. To this end, they issued a brochure outlining their plans for the Shire. Sam Rourke upset the Halifax Dukes Speedway Club in March by demanding a hike in their rent. A similar dispute in 1986 would see the Dukes switch to Odsal. He also sought to buy the Shire from the council for £75,000. Town were currently paying £500 per year rent plus rates and proposed new floodlights, a badminton court and a restaurant among his ideas for redeveloping the ground. John Crowther was then set the onerous task of lobbying the other chairman, but, having done so, felt confident that Halifax Town would be re-elected at the Football League's annual meeting.